Look at me, not with your eyes, with the part of you that knows you're holding back. Right now, there's a voice inside that whispers reasons, builds fences, draws maps of safe routes that keep you small. I'll give you one challenge before a single sentence goes by. Decide whether fear controls your calendar, your relationships, your work, your dreams, or whether you will make fear start obeying you. If you keep scrolling, keep nodding, keep pretending the comfort of smallness is fine, nothing changes. But if you lean into this, even a little, what follows will change how you move in the world. Fear is not the enemy. It's a signal, a poorly translated one. Your body reads a thought as if a lion is at the cave mouth, heart racing, breath shallow, judgment fogged. Welcome to the circus of the primitive brain. Fear's original job was noble. It kept you alive when threats were real and immediate. Now it mistakes imagination for attack, exaggerates probability into certainty, and hands you a script written in worst-case scenarios. That script is loud, professional, and convincing, but here's the truth. What it shouts the loudest is rarely true. Understand this. Most of your fear is borrowed, rehearsed, and unnecessary. You inherited it from culture, from family stories, from the worst-case endings you watched as a kid. You rehearse future disasters like an actor who's never met the director. Your mind loves to imagine catastrophe because catastrophe is dramatic. Drama feels realer than the slow, steady work of success. The result is you live as if the catastrophe is certain, and you let that certainty set the limits of your life. You think fear protects you. Mostly, it just preserves the status quo. That cozy cage keeps the soul from stretching. The price of that preservation is paid in small defeats. The book you never write, the conversation you never have, the risk you never take. These are not small prices. They compound. They accumulate until the life you dreamed looks like a painting behind glass, visible, admired by others, untouchable by you. So what is success? Not just some checklist of awards and numbers. Success, in the version that matters, is the alignment of your actions with your deepest aims. It's the quiet confidence that you are living on purpose. When fear is in charge, your aims get sidetracked. When you take command, fear becomes an engine, raw fuel to be redirected, not a jailer with swaggers and keys. Let's break the illusion that fear is an immovable fact. Start by asking one brutal question. What if the story you tell yourself about this fear is false? What if the worst you're rehearsing has less than 1% chance of happening? Your mind will protest. It will offer evidence, but evidence is not the same as destiny. The gap between what you fear and what actually happens is where all human growth lives. Take responsibility. This is the turning point. Responsibility is the muscle that names the problem honestly. This fear exists, and I am choosing how to respond. Notice the phrasing. You are not trying to make fear disappear forever. You are deciding that your actions will not be governed by it. Responsibility is not blame-shame theater. It's a clean, controlled appraisal and a commitment to move. The moment you accept responsibility, you move from being a passive bystander in your life to an active architect. That shift feels uncomfortable at first. It also feels powerful. You need a new relationship with your thoughts. Notice them as they arise. Don't invite every anxious narrative into your planning meeting. When a fearful thought shows up, treat it like a scent. Identify it. Name it for what it is, imagination. And then decide, will you let this image of doom rewrite your plan, or will you file it under possible but unlikely and continue building? Practice this daily, in small choices, in petty fears. The more you catch and reroute those stories, the larger the map you will be able to draw for your life. There's a technique that feels almost childish, but works like a scalpel. The 5-minute action. When fear freezes you, commit to 5 minutes of motion in the direction of your goal. Not the grand gesture, the smallest forward movement you can imagine. Open the document. Make one call. Draft one paragraph. Do one push-up. The biology of movement shifts the chemistry in your body and proves to your mind that action doesn't equal annihilation. Over time, 5 minutes becomes 15, 15 becomes an hour, and the spiral of paralysis breaks. Imagination is the other side of the coin. You often think imagination is what feeds fear, but imagination is equally the tool that sculpts courage. Rehearse success with the same intensity you rehearse disaster. Visualize not just the victory, but the steps getting you there. Feel the small wins in your body. This trains the brain. As Earl Nightingale put it, you become what you think about most of the time. Use that. Plant a new feed of images, you acting, you learning, you recovering. This is not fake optimism. It's cognitive engineering. Your subconscious will begin to negotiate with you differently once it has a new internal movie to play. Now, know your fear's categories. There are practical differences between them, and knowing which one you face helps you choose the right approach. Fear of failure is about pride and identity. You must redefine what failure means. See it as data, not judgment. Fear of criticism is social. Expose yourself gradually. Criticism loses power when it becomes ordinary. Fear of the unknown is existential. You must build a repeated practice of exploration, small and steady steps into mystery. Treat fear like a problem with different solutions, not a single enemy to be crushed. Let's talk about the voice inside, your internal dialogue. It is an echo chamber. If that voice is a critic, it will find reasons to justify inaction. If it's a coach, it will offer actionable feedback. Begin to script the coach. Replace "I can't" with "I will try." Replace "I'm not ready" with "I will learn." That simple rephrasing rewires how you approach tasks. Some famous minds said variations of this for a reason. The language you use internally lays the track your behavior will follow. Responsibility, 5-minute action, imagination, reframing. These are the tools I give you now. Use them. Use them today. You don't have to demolish all fear at once. You need a steady, uncompromising commitment to test fear's claims. Each time you put action ahead of avoidance, you get new data. This data cumulatively discredits fear's propaganda. The more evidence you collect that action is survivable, that failure is repairable, that criticism is often stupidity rather than truth, the less persuasive fear becomes. I want you to sit with a question and not let yourself answer it in safe phrases. I want the kind of answer that feels like an admission, the kind that makes your chest tighten and your stomach churn because it's honest. Here it is. What's the one thing you are avoiding because you are afraid of being judged, failing, or losing? Say it out loud. Write it down. Put it where you can see it. That name is your starting line. Now pick a 5-minute action that edges you toward that thing. Do it. Report back in the comments below. Tell me the name of the fear and the tiny first move you took. What will you tell me? Will you keep protecting the version of yourself who's small and comfortable? Or are you going to prove, day by day, that courage is built by repetition? Write in the comments right now. What are you actually afraid to admit about your life? Part 2. Fear is a master of disguise. It doesn't show up in battle armor labeled fear. It wears 1,000 masks, and most of them sound reasonable. "I'll wait," it whispers as ambition cools. "Not now," it says in the middle of a plan. "You don't have enough experience," it intones like a kindly guardian. Those masks are clever because they give you plausible reasons to stay put. Your job is to see the costume under the stage lights and call it out. The first mask is the mask of excuses. It's polite, it's rational, and it's relentless. You tell yourself you're too busy, too tired, or too old. You invent schedules and emergencies to justify not starting. This mask appeals to the part of you that wants permission to avoid pain. But here's the ugly truth. Every excuse is a decision in disguise. Excuses are not neutral. They are choices that protect comfort at the cost of growth. Start by asking, what would I do if I had no excuse? Then, for 1 week, refuse one small excuse every day. See what happens. The second mask is procrastination dressed as preparation. It's the checklist monster that keeps you polishing the plan instead of taking the step. You say you need more research, a better tool, the perfect website. Preparation is useful. Perfection is a tyrant. Use the minimum viable move test. What is the smallest, rawest version of this action that still counts? Build from that. The person who ships a flawed version learns faster than the person who polishes for a decade. The third mask is safety in numbers, waiting for external validation. When I have the degree, when I have the partner, when the market is right. These are the phrases of someone outsourcing courage. You will always find reasons to wait for the chorus to start clapping. Don't. Start conducting your life's music first. As Dale Carnegie taught in different words, you influence by starting small and by showing up. Influence accumulates only when you stop expecting approval as a prerequisite for action. Then there is the mask of identity. I am not that kind of person. This one is poisonous because it ties your future to outdated self-concepts. You are not stuck to some permanent script. Identity is flexible. The more decisions you make that align with the person you want to become, the faster that identity starts to feel like truth. Want to be someone who speaks up? Speak up in small, repeatable ways. Want to be someone who finishes? Finish tiny projects. Every repeated act rewrites your internal ledger. Fear also loves to masquerade as logic. It produces elaborate spreadsheets of reasons why a move would fail. That's why you need tools to separate useful analysis from fear costumed as reason. Use a time box. Spend 30 minutes analyzing, then commit to action. If your analysis keeps returning only reasons to stop, it's not analysis anymore. It's a stall tactic. Your internal dialogue is the scriptwriter of these masks. There's the critic, the planner, the lover, what you love, the skeptic. Which voice dominates? If the critic has the microphone, every plan sounds doomed. If the negotiator runs the meeting, you'll forever find a compromise that keeps you small. Identify the voices. Give each one a role and a schedule. Let the critic speak for 5 minutes, and then close the session. Let the coach take the rest of the meeting. This is not theater, it's cognitive hygiene. Try an exercise I call voice rehearsal. Write down the internal argument you hear when you face a decision. Put each sentence into the mouth of a character: the critic, the planner, the lover, what you love, and the skeptic. Then write a short rebuttal from the coach, calm, specific, and action-oriented. Read it out loud and then take one small step. This method externalizes the drama and breaks the trance of automatic avoidance. Stories are powerful because they provide permission to feel and then move. So here's the story you already know but may forget. Every giant achievement you admire started with someone choosing action over comfort. The entrepreneur who launched without a safety net, the writer who published despite ridicule, the leader who spoke when silence would have been easier. These people didn't have more courage at birth. They had protocols for ignoring their masks. You can build the same protocols. When fear hides as shame, I don't deserve that, who am I to, you need to practice claiming space. Shame is a social emotion with a private tyranny. Make a list of small exposures, a social post, a short conversation, a request. Expose the thing that shames you in small doses. The light of an ordinary room makes shame shrink. The more you normalize the discomfort, the less power the mask holds. Another mask is the safe alternative, settling. It sounds appealing: stability, predictability, reduced risk. But settling steals time. It's not neutral, it subtracts from your future potential. If the cost of staying is invisibly large, the trade-off is not worth it. Calculate the compound loss. What will you miss 10 years from now if you keep choosing the safe path? Let that calculation upset you enough to act. Now, practical tools to unmask fear and move. Name the mask. Be blunt. This is the procrastination voice. Naming neutralizes authority. Test the claim. Ask, what evidence supports this fear? What evidence contradicts it? Most fears fail the evidence test. Set a 5-minute action. Do the smallest thing that represents motion toward the goal. Celebrate the micro win. Reinforcement matters. It rewires the brain to prefer action. Repeat daily. Builds habit, then identity. One technique that flips masks quickly is public commitment. Tell someone, one person, about the small action you will take, then report back. Social friction increases the cost of hiding. You don't need a big audience, you need one witness who cares enough to ask. Accountability is a low-cost amplifier for courage. A short note about fear of people's opinions. People will judge you, guaranteed. But most judgment is shallow and momentary. The ones whose opinions matter will stick around. The others are background noise. Conduct an audit. Whose opinions truly influence your decisions? If someone's voice is not constructive, downgrade its importance. If you're waiting for everyone to nod before you move, you will never start. I want you to try an experiment now. Think of the next thing you keep delaying. Name the mask it's wearing. Excuse, perfectionism, identity, shame. Write that mask down. Then choose a 5-minute action that directly contradicts the mask. If it's perfectionism, upload a rough version. If it's identity, do the tiny act that belongs to the new you. If it's shame, say something honest to one person. Do the action within the next 24 hours. No permissions, no debates. Write in the comments and tell me, which mask shows up in your life most often, and what 5-minute action will you take to unmask it? Be specific. The community here needs names and moves, not vague promises. Call the mask by its real name and tell us the exact move you'll make. Part 3. Feel the weight of that moment you froze, the pause that took more from you than the event ever did. Picture it. You stand at the edge of a decision like someone on a cliff staring at the water below. The mind runs scenarios like a worsened weather report. You'll fail, you'll be embarrassed, you'll be exposed. Your body reacts as if you're really falling. That's not poetic exaggeration. That's biology. Your nervous system doesn't care whether the danger is a literal tiger or the imagined roar of critics. It prepares you to survive, not to thrive. Here's the brutal clarity. Fear hijacks the dashboard so quietly, you never notice the theft. The amygdala, call it the alarm room, rings the bell. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that plans, negotiates, and reasons, gets knocked offline for a bit. Heart races, breathing shortens, muscles tense, attention narrows to threat. You feel urgency, but the urgency is false. It wants you to prioritize safety above growth. That rush is useful when you're escaping immediate harm. It's catastrophic when it shows up during a conversation, a pitch, an application, or an honest message. The physiology is neutral. The tragedy is that you follow its script. When the body runs scared, your decision-making narrows into binary modes: fight, flight, or freeze. Freeze is the most common thief of potential. It looks like waiting, planning, or gathering more information. But underneath, it's paralysis dressed in strategy. You tell yourself you're being smart. You're not. You're letting an old survival reflex decide a modern, nuanced problem. Think about the cost. Each paralysis is a tiny tax on your future. Missed conversations become missed relationships. Missed chances become foregone experiments that might have taught you who you really are. Opportunities often look like uncomfortable steps that promise no immediate reward. Fear convinces you the discomfort is proof to stop. That's backward. Discomfort is the currency of growth. There's a psychological trick fear uses that you must know. It confuses probability with possibility. It shows you a vivid image of the worst outcome and asks you to treat that image like the most likely forecast. You imagine humiliation with the clarity of a film trailer and then act as if the premiere is inevitable. In reality, the universe is messy and kind of boring. Most worst cases don't happen nearly as often as you imagine. The statistical reality of most human endeavors is that small, consistent attempts beat occasional perfectionist epics. The math favors motion. Paralysis also creates a feedback loop. You freeze, regret follows, you rehearse the freeze more vividly next time, and fear gets stronger. Breaking that loop is the most practical thing you will ever do. Here is a 4-step interruption protocol to short-circuit the loop. Name the sensation. Say aloud, "I feel tightness in my chest and a rush of images." Naming reduces the power of the signal because language engages the rational brain. Breathe to reset. Slow, measured exhalations for 60 seconds shift your physiology enough to let reasoning come back online. Don't skip this. Biology matters. Take a 5-second commitment. Do something so small you can't argue with it. Open the email. Say one sentence. Draw a line. Movement collapses the imagined worst case into data. Record the result immediately. Write one sentence about what happened. Even if the outcome was messy, writing it down turns emotion into evidence, and evidence erodes fear. You need to collect evidence against fear, deliberately and methodically. Fear is loud. Proof is quiet. Make a proof ledger. Small entries of times you acted and nothing catastrophic happened, or something good happened, or you survived and learned. This ledger is the antidote to the brain's tendency to over-catalog failure. Over time, its pages become persuasive. There's another mechanism fear uses, the false deadline. It convinces you that waiting will give you more clarity, but the truth is, waiting often ruins momentum. Momentum compounds. Once you begin, small wins accrue psychological gravity. You want to continue. Waiting kills that momentum. You must distinguish between productive preparation and decorative delay. A good test? If your preparation has a measurable outcome and a deadline, it's probably productive. If it's endless tinkering, it's decorative. Now, let's talk about consequence management. You cannot eliminate risk, but you can manage downside. That understanding removes the binary thinking that fuels paralysis. Map the worst viable outcome realistically and write how you would respond. If the worst case is loss of a job, list practical next steps: savings, temporary work, networking plan. Seeing a plan for repair makes taking risks rational instead of reckless. It shrinks fear's size by making the downside solvable. Relationship fear is its own animal. The fear of being judged, of speaking up and being dismissed, it's social pain, ancient and immediate. Social threats activate the same regions of the brain as physical pain. That's why rejection feels brutal. But social pain heals. The people who matter will either support you or reveal their unsuitability for your life. Both outcomes are informative. The sooner you let social feedback sort itself, the sooner you stop making decisions based on imagined crowds and start making decisions based on real allies. Here's a tactic for social fear: a mini exposure schedule. Pick low-stakes social acts that trigger anxiety. A short, honest comment in a group chat, one brief idea in a meeting, a LinkedIn post that's imperfect. Do them repeatedly and track the actual reactions. Most of the time, the emotional charge deflates. Exposure turns fear into familiarity. Fear of failure deserves special treatment. People often assume failure is fatal to identity, that a single miss will rewrite who they are. In truth, failure is feedback. Change your metric. Measure effort, iteration, and learning, not just binary outcomes. Celebrate the decisions you made, the tests you ran, the hypotheses you invalidated. That's how a career of wins is built, by accumulating experiments, not by collecting trophies. Let's get tactical with a practice that forces your brain to reframe risk. I call it the 3-move experiment. Identify a fear, then plan 3 tiny forward moves you can take over the next week. Each move must be simple and observable. After each move, log 1 sentence. What happened? What you learned. The goal is not to conquer the thing in one hero act. The goal is to gather data and train the nervous system that action produces manageable outcomes. In a month, many fears will be less mystified. In 3 months, you'll have a dossier of evidence. One more truth. Courage is not absence of fear. Courage is the mastery of action despite fear. The sound of someone being brave is not silence. It's a nervous heartbeat and a steady step. When you watch people you admire, notice how often their faces show tension and doubt. They move anyway. That's the model to emulate. Now, the question to make this real for you, think of a time in the past 6 months when fear cost you an opportunity. Not a hypothetical, a real thing. What happened? Be specific. Describe it in 1 sentence. Then imagine the exact move you would take if fear were merely a weather report. What's the next smallest action you would take? Put it in the comments. Tell us what you lost and what you could still gain. Naming it breaks the spell and turns a private regret into a public commitment. Write that 1 sentence now and post it below. What did fear take from you in the past 6 months? And what is the next small move you will make to reclaim it? Part 4. Imagine fear as a raw, vibrating wire in your palm. If you panic, it shocks you and makes you drop the thing you were trying to build. If you steady your grip, route the current, and connect it to a machine, that same wire becomes power. The point is not to banish fear, you can't, but to reroute it so it charges your will instead of frying your wiring. This is the moment where people stop talking about courage and actually make it. First, understand fear as energy. The tight chest, the quick breath, the heat in your face, these are not messages from the universe saying stop forever. They are fuel. They mean your nervous system is primed. Decide, will you spend that fuel on rehearsing catastrophe, or will you spend it on action? The real practice is converting physiological intensity into forward movement. Start with an actionable algorithm you can use in the wild. Recognize, reframe, respond, repeat. Recognize. Name the physiological signs. Hear the inner narrative and label it. This is fear of failure. This is social anxiety. This is perfectionism. Naming is not therapy for the faint-hearted, it's a surgical tool. When you can say, this is fear of criticism, the statement removes the fog. It also allows you to choose a specific countermeasure instead of generic bravado. Reframe, shift the meaning. If your mind screams, this proves I'm not good enough, reframe to, this is evidence I care about what I'm doing, or this is proof I am near growth. Reframing doesn't lie, it translates. It tells the limbic system that the spike in adrenaline is associated with challenge, not catastrophe. You are teaching your brain a new language. Stress means opportunity. Respond. Take a move that costs less than the fear, not a heroic leap, a measured step that is an honest signal to yourself that you will choose action more than avoidance. This is the discipline of the small stake. It's how giants are quietly forged. Make the move observable and irreversible, something that forces continuation. Ship the page, call the person, pitch the idea, set the meeting. Irreversibility reduces the room for endless reevaluation. Repeat. Do this until the new path is the default. Habits are the compound interest of behavior. Each tiny act of courage deposits a small amount of moral and psychological capital into your account. Over time, you can spend more freely. Discipline is the midwife of transformation. If you wait for inspiration to strike, you will wake up disappointed. Instead, schedule courage. Block time every week for fear training, a short, focused set of actions designed to expose you to your friction points. The training must be predictable, trackable, and slightly uncomfortable. Think of it as strength training for your nervous system. Lifts become heavier, resistance grows manageable. Your identity follows your practice. One practical structure: the 7-day exposure loop. Choose one fear. Each day, perform a micro-exposure, a deliberate, low-stakes act that nudges you closer to the feared outcome. Day 1, observe the fear and write a 100-word account. Day 2, share a one-line thought publicly. Day 3, ask for feedback. Day 4, do a small reveal of work. Day 5, accept one critique and note what you learned. Day 6, make a modest revision. Day 7, take a visible step. Publish, present, or pitch. The goal is not perfection. The goal is habituation. After one cycle, your nervous system will have new data. Willpower is not a mythical reservoir. It is muscle and system. You cannot rely on sole heroic acts. You must design environments that reduce friction for courageous behavior. Make the action the path of least resistance. If writing is your aim, open a document and place your cursor where you will start each day. If exercise is your fear, put your shoes next to the bed. Architecture matters. Set defaults that favor risk-taking. Use imagination with discipline. Visualization is not fluffy, it's tactical rehearsal. But rehearsal must be coupled with performance. Visualize the step, how you move, what you say, how you recover if it goes wrong. Then practice out loud. Mentally simulate the repair plan for the worst case, then enact the micro-action. Visualization prepares the brain. The micro-action proves it. Another transformation tool is habit stacking. Tie a courage act to an existing ritual. After your morning coffee, send one outreach message. After dinner, write one paragraph. Small acts, consistently placed, become invisible over time. The stack removes decision friction and stokes momentum. There's also the power of reinterpretation. Convert fear into curiosity. Curiosity lowers the stakes. Instead of asking, "Will I fail?" ask, "What will I learn?" Curiosity turns threat into experiment. Experiments have hypotheses, metrics, and iteration. They don't require perfection. They require curiosity, which is more sustainable than courage alone. Disrupt the identity trap. If you say, "I'm not the type of person who," you freeze your future. Instead, act as the person you want to become for one day. Borrow their posture, language, and schedule. Fake it lightly until the neural pathways rewire. Identity is the echo of repeated acts. Choose acts that echo the person you want to be. Now, a tactical framework to convert fear into leverage. The F.O.R.C.E. method. F. Frame the fear. Write one sentence that names it precisely. O. Outline the actual downside. Be specific and practical. R. Reduce the risk. List 3 mitigation moves that make the downside manageable. C. Commit publicly to one micro-action with a deadline. E. Execute and record the outcome. This framework converts vague dread into a project plan. Projects are tangible, feelings are not. When you turn emotion into structure, you shrink the imaginary monster. Remember the art of repair. People fear mistakes because they imagine irreparable damage. Prepare clear repair protocols for your most likely mistakes. If you send a poor message, prepare a clarifying follow-up. If you fail a pitch, schedule a debrief email. Knowing repair is possible lowers the paralysis threshold. Discipline also includes rest. You won't turn fear into fuel if you burn out. Create recovery rituals, sleep, movement, and time in nature. These reset your nervous system and increase your tolerance for stress. Balance is not softness, it's strategy. Finally, practice generosity toward yourself. Courage is messy. You will stumble. When you do, analyze without annihilating judgment. Ask what you learned and what you would change. Treat your growth like an iterative product with version updates. Now, your assignment to make this part real is to pick one fear and use the F.O.R.C.E method right now. Frame it in one sentence. Outline the worst realistic outcome. Name 3 mitigation moves. Commit publicly to one micro action with a deadline, and make that action irreversible. Execute it within the next 48 hours. Then come back and record one sentence about what happened and what you learned. Write in the comments, what fear will you transform using F.O.R.C.E, and what is the one micro action you commit to within 48 hours? Be specific. Say the fear out loud, name the action, and give your deadline. The community is waiting, and honesty here changes everything. Part 5. This is the end of the chapter and the beginning of the life you've been drafting in secret. If you've done the work in the previous parts, naming the fear, unmasking it, collecting proof, routing the energy, building micro habits, you're not supposed to feel perfectly calm now. You're supposed to feel stronger, clearer, and slightly uncomfortable in the best way. That discomfort is the pulse of change. It means you are alive to possibility. Freedom beyond fear is not a place you suddenly arrive at and retire. It's a way you live. It looks like a steady commitment to what matters, not a burst of heroism that exhausts you into the same old patterns. Real freedom is the ability to choose based on values and not on alarm signals. It's the quiet, daily insistence that you will try, repair, and iterate again and again. When fear is no longer the CEO of your decisions, life rearranges itself around curiosity, courage, and coherence. Start by building a life architecture that makes courage habitual. Surroundings matter. Who you trust, what you consume, how your day is organized, these create scaffolding for action. If your feed, friends, and habits reward smallness, you will grow small. If your circle praises stretch, curiosity, and honest feedback, you will grow wide. Design 3 structural changes this week. One that changes your environment, one that changes your schedule, one that changes your social input. Move your devices out of your bedroom. Block time for uncomfortable work. Find one person who will ask the hard question and keep asking it. These are practical levers. They change behavior by changing context. Keep practicing repair. You will falter. When you do, have a protocol. A short, kind debrief with yourself, one concrete note of what you would change, and the next small step logged. Repair is not excusing mediocrity, it's refusing annihilation by mistake. The more you rehearse recovery, the more bold your attempts become. You keep trying because you know you can fix course, and fixing course is often where the true learning happens. Honor the slow work. Culture sells thrill as progress and calls it success. Real success is built in hours of mild discomfort, in the accumulation of imperfect attempts. Napoleon Hill and others spoke to the imagination's rule over results. Use that rule, but pair it with grind. Imagine the outcome vividly, and then schedule the tiny, imperfect steps that will get you there. The combination of vision and relentless micro-action is where lives are remade. Level up your language. The words you use about your life are the operating system. Replace conditional talk with declarative verbs. I will try moves to I will do this next. I might becomes I will test. Replace passive phrasing with ownership. This is not about toxic positivity, it's about clarity. The brain is a predictive machine that needs clear input. Ambiguous, fearful sentences produce fuzzy results. Crisp language produces decisive actions. You must keep building identity through small acts. Identity is not declared, it's produced by repetition. Say you want to be a person who speaks up for your ideas. For 2 weeks, speak one idea in a meeting, one social setting, one online thread, small acts that accumulate into an identity. Want to be someone who ships work? Commit to finishing one tiny product each month. Identity follows action, not the other way around. If you want influence, practice generosity. One of the most effective ways to reduce fear of rejection is to make the interaction about others. Give feedback before you ask for feedback. Offer help before you ask for help. When you lead with generosity, your fear of being judged lessens because you're not asking the world to validate you, you're contributing. Dale Carnegie taught the power of sincere interest in others. Use it as a tactical shield and an amplifier. The more you focus outward, the less tyrannical your self-critique becomes. Don't neglect the economic muscle of fear work. Financial buffers, small savings, and contingency plans remove the catastrophic framing that feeds paralysis. If your nervous system keeps imagining ruin, give it a real repair plan, an emergency fund, a fallback client, an interim strategy. That isn't cowardice, it's smart engineering. When downside is managed, upside becomes easier to pursue. Cultivate mentors and models. You don't need permission to learn from someone who has walked the path. Study their moves, not just their outcomes. How did they react to criticism? How did they rebalance after failure? Copy their micro behaviors and then adapt them to your context. Rare mentions like Hill, Carnegie, Nightingale are pointers to methods, not gospel. Take what calibrates, discard what flatlines you. The point is method, not worship. Make a practice of gratitude for difficulty. Sounds odd, but gratitude lubricates resilience. When you're grateful for the lessons that friction brings, it becomes easier to welcome small setbacks as data. Say it plainly. Thank you for this test, I will learn. That sentence does not erase pain, but it reframes it into training. Over time, your nervous system starts to prefer stress with meaning over comfort with stagnation. Remember to measure progress differently. Success metrics that depend only on outcomes will keep you trapped in fear because outcomes are volatile. Measure the inputs: days you showed up, experiments you ran, conversations initiated. Inputs are controllable, outcomes are not. When inputs are consistent, outcomes become predictable. Track the numbers that matter and celebrate them. Community is your amplifier. Share your micro-commitments with the people who want you to grow. Accountability doesn't need spectacle, it needs honesty. A private witness who knows your aims and will ask for your update is gold. At the same time, limit the audience to people aligned with growth. Not everyone deserves a veto on your courage. As you build this life, you'll notice a quieter internal life. Fear will still whisper, but it will lack convincing proof. The old narratives that once ruled you will seem like acquaintances you occasionally entertain, not house guests who control the kitchen. That's progress. Also know this: new fears will appear. Growth invites new thresholds. Meet them with the same toolkit. Name, small exposure, evidence ledger, repair plan, repeat. Your process is flexible. Your commitment is not. Here's a practice for the next month. Choose one big direction and break it into 30 daily micro actions. Each day, log what you did and one tiny lesson. At the end of the month, review the ledger. You will be shocked by how far you moved. This is not magic, it's compounding courage. Now the final blunt question for you, the one that separates thinking from doing. If fear disappeared tonight, what would you start next? Don't answer in generalities. Name one project, one conversation, one decision. Write it down. Then name the first 5-minute action you will take in the next 48 hours to begin that project. Post it in the comments below. Be specific. Be brutal. Honesty is the hinge that opens the door. One more thing before I go. You do this work not because the world demands it, but because your future self deserves it. The small acts you take now will compound into a life with fewer regrets and more agency. That is a debt you pay to the person you will become. Write in the comments, what will you start if fear were gone tonight? And what is your 5-minute move in the next 48 hours? Tell us the fear you're reclaiming and the exact action you'll take. Be specific, be public, and then do it. If this series moved you, leave a comment and let me know which part cut the deepest. If you want more training like this, frameworks, micro exercises, scripts to use in real conversations, say which area you want next, and I'll give you practical drills. Subscribe and hit like if you found value. It helps more people find the work and builds the community we all need.